This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Never has there been a better time to look at yourself and figure out what you need, what you want, who you are. Living in a pandemic will do that to you. When it's all over, will you be the person you've always wanted to be? Our first book, Me, We Wins, aims to help you figure life out.
My name is Deanne Renard, and I am from New Orleans, Louisiana. By trade, I'm a financial analyst, and writing the book is a new area of my life now. I used to walk in the park for my exercise with a girlfriend, and we would talk about our various relationships with our parents, our children, friends, spouses, employees or employers. We talked about relationships with God. Every relationship that you can think of, we talked about. And in that talking, those conversations, we realized that the common denominator was me. And realizing that, we realized, well, then if I'm the common denominator, there must be some impact or control that I can have in these relationships, especially if they're not going the way that I'd like them to go. So the name of the book is Me, We Win, Establishing a Stronger Me to Build a Better We in Strengthening All Your Relationships. The character is you. The character is trying to rediscover or discover the true you, which I refer to as your me. So this book is all about learning and getting reacquainted with your true self. And this book is directed towards women, but the principles apply to all. But women in particular, we wear so many hats with being mother and wife and employer, employee, and caregivers, and that we oftentimes get lost in who we are, who your me, your true self is. And the book is to help you to rediscover that, because not only is it good for you that you will now walk in the purpose that you've been called for, but it's also because the world needs the true you to show up, because you have a purpose for being here. And the workbooks help you penetrate into each chapter, the area of conversation or concentration of that chapter helps you to look into yourself and answer these questions so that you would know more about yourself as it relates to the various topics that we discussed. The first chapter is asking you about you. Who are you? What do you want? What are your dreams? What are your thoughts? And not what you've seen on TV, not what someone has said that, oh, you're good at this, you ought to do this. It's about you. What do you truly want? So the questions would be, what do you want? Why do you want that? How is that relevant to you? Is it still the same desire today as it was yesterday because things change? How do you feel about certain situations? It penetrates to the very core of what do you want and who you are. And you write down what do you want. And then that drives you to think about why do you want what you're saying you want? What's the relevance? How important is that to you? What is that going to do for you? Not for your family, not for the children, or not because people think that's what you're supposed to do. What is this going to do for you? So I'll tell you about how you present yourself and how that looks to other people. And then we'll talk about how you get what you want out of the relationship by being truthful, by being honest, by being upfront, by expressing how you feel, and doing all of this in a godly manner. And then that one attracts people to you that's similar to you, and it also empowers you to stand up for yourself so that you know what's acceptable and what's not. And then you get to choose the relationships that you will allow to occur in your life. It is your choice.
How do you get the message out there?
I just had a book club that we went through the entire book through Zoom, and we were able to discuss the chapter, answer questions that there was some uncertainty around. The folks was able to work on their workbook, and then we'd get back together and we'd discuss the things that they may have felt stuck on. You had participation from all the ladies, so it was enlightening to be able to discuss this with other people as well. Women who've been there, done that, or different experiences that would encourage you. I also like to do workshops and speaking engagements in different arenas to be able to reach the young people, to reach any woman who's looking to better themselves, who's looking for a more joyful, self-fulfilling life.
All right, Deanne, and you can go to mewewins.com for more information. Thank you. Any parent knows how challenging it can be to get little ones to bed, but it can be a lot of fun too. And our next author took a game she used to play with her little boy and turned it into a book entitled Good Night, Sweet Bear.
Hi, my name is Michelle Millen, and I'm a former preschool teacher. I taught preschool in Anchorage, Alaska. I have 4 boys, and bedtime was always such a fun time to connect with them and to hear about their days. And we would have our routines, and I had one child in particular who had this vivid imagination. And so it's kind of inspired by that. And also as a preschool teacher, I loved reading stories to the kids. Right. That was my favorite part of class. And I knew if I could get them engaged, that it would be very interactive and a really fun experience. The book is about a mom and her young son, and it's supposed to be a typical bedtime routine. And as she's tucking him in, he decides he wants to play a game. And so is a game about procrastination? Probably. But she plays along because we always play along. And it's just a game he created where he has his favorite stuffed animals, but he's named those animals a different name. And so she's trying to figure out what name goes with what animal. And it's written in rhyme, so it's very interactive. So she runs over and grabs the animal that she thinks he's talking about. And he's like, oh, no, that's not the animal I'm talking about. And then he'll give a description of the animal he actually wants. And so she is trying to guess what that is. And then she'll answer him back in rhyme. So it's kind of a back and forth. There is a message to the story, but I don't want to say too much because the biggest message in it actually comes at the very end when she's telling him goodnight. There's a little twist there, just something kind of fun where everyone's like, oh, I get it. I really did write it for the kids because I thought they would love the rhymes and you could get them guessing. But I also wrote it for the parents or whoever was reading the story because it really does show that connection and how special that is between them and a child. The little boy's name in the story is Bear. And that's kind of why he does this whole thing, is because he's a boy and his name's Bear. And so he's kind of been watching Mom even when she didn't know it, and has named all his animals different names. So,
aw, that's so cute.
I have read it to my children, even though they're grown. And I do have some nieces and nephews I've read it to. And then it's so great because people have sent me videos of them reading with their kids. And you can tell they've read it a couple times because the kids are actually finishing the sentences, which was what I wanted it to be from the beginning, just really interactive. But I really need to promote it some more. And so my first advertising is going out actually this month. So I'm excited about that.
What are you going to do?
It's through a company called Story Monsters. And so they're just going to promote it for the next couple months as the holidays approach. So it'll be like a half-page ad in each of the issues, and it will just say where you can find it and a little bit about the book.
Great idea, Michelle. Thanks for sharing. Okay, sci-fi fans, next up, 2 books you might be interested in, beginning with Galaxy 101, a science fiction novel.
Hi, this is Mike Girdkin. I live in the Midwest, gateway to the West, St. Louis, Missouri. I've spent over 40 years in sales and marketing in the telecommunications and information processing industries, and I'm retired now.
And you wind up writing a sci-fi novel.
I did.
How did that happen?
Well, my son inspired me to write the book. It's an imaginative, fun, and interesting science fiction thriller for someone in his age bracket. You know, he's a developing teenager or young adult, and it could also be a learning experience for him. The main idea of the story is that it was set about 80 years into the future, and through an advanced technology, Earth discovers a new power source that is capable of powering a spaceship in a never-before fashion. It's using nuclear fusion that would give him the power to routinely do interplanetary travel. So Earth is on a quest to discover interplanetary friendships But on their maiden flight, they encounter aggressive behavior from some of the other planets who've already experienced interplanetary travel, one of which also desired galactic dominance, especially over Earth. Earth learned that we were the new guy on the block and had a lot to learn, hence the title of the book, which is Galaxy 101 in an educational setting. And a galactic battle ensues where Earth is forced to defend herself. The protagonist in the story is half Martian, half Earthling named Rodius. So he's the only character in the universe that is of interplanetary heritage. And the other guys are from various settings within the Earth, which, becomes a global community in the story. It's a mixed bag. There is a big battle in, I guess, a high point of the story where the battle actually takes place on different planets all at the same time. And it all comes to one final battle. But then the story goes on a little bit and lays some future for the actual characters and gives a more defined ending. It's got some personal messages in the text. There's a particular line between Rodius and his brother where they're discussing Rodius's father, who is the premier of Mars. And Rodius's brother gives the advice, don't undermine the love of a father. So it's just a very subtle point that I would want my son to someday have, and I would hope that that's a universal enough way of bringing it about that, maybe other people would be able to
It's
some meaning
relatable.
from it. Yeah.
All right, Mike. Next up, The Winged Lion.
Yeah, well, hi, I'm Patrick Carlson. I live in Minnesota. I live in Elk River, Minnesota, just north of Minneapolis. I'm a home physical therapist, so I do quite a bit of traveling in the north suburbs of Minneapolis, seeing folks in homes after illnesses, surgeries, hospitalizations, etc. I've really enjoyed being an author on the side. My latest work is called The Winged Lion, Marion's Match. Now, it takes place in the future, in the year 2090, and the primary protagonist, his name is Peter. He's a young boy, 8th grade, and he's got these special gifts. He can see souls, he can see angels and demons. He's very profoundly intellectual, far superior to those of his classmates, and he's associated with a very secretive underground rebellion which is taking place within this world. There's a worldwide government, greatly tyrannical, and Peter is linked to this organization which has been growing in scale and complexity in the hopes of overthrowing the worldwide government, with its leader being Premier Karioth. He's the dictator of the world, and so Peter plays a part in this role with this rebellion to take down the Commonwealth as it's known. I'm kind of an amateur historian of sorts. Ironically, most of the books I read are all nonfiction. I greatly like reading about U.S. history, world history, military technologies, tactics, military history. And so this book is basically put together with a lot of those ideas. There's ideological struggles, good versus evil, freedom versus tyranny, the material world that we see versus the unseen immaterial world, which seems to be neglected these days quite a bit. I'm referring to, especially with the afterlife, the transcendental soul, angels, demons, things like that. So I thought the storyline would be a good way to incorporate these different interests I have into a fluid and compelling novel for folks to read. And my hours are flexible depending on if people cancel or if they're rehospitalized and things like that. So at times I'm able to create new Facebook ads, or I've got different advertisements out there online, Goodreads, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just trying to grow a following. And I'm also doing quite a bit of work at home before and after work, and that can be difficult to manage with my 3 young boys and wife and all the family life stuff. So
Jeez, when do you find
trying to
time to write?
typically early morning, 4, 5, 6 in the morning, or at night when all the kids are in bed if I'm done with my work, paperwork stuff. But one of my secrets has been just carrying a little notebook with me every day. If there's stuff that comes into my mind, I just write it down. And, I get so sick of staring at a computer screen all day. I'd rather just write it down on paper and then go back and transcribe it when I get a chance.
All right, Patrick, you're motivated. I will give you that. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
We are back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Captain Bob Toohey is a Vietnam vet and a Naval Academy graduate with over 550 combat missions, but one in particular stands out. In his book, Seawolf, Where You From? A Warrior's Tales, he talks about a mission in Vietnam when, by sparing a life, he spared his own.
The squadron was called Helicopter Attack Light Squadron 3, HAL-3. It was a bunch of volunteers, probably 300 guys. And it was in existence for about 5 or 7 years. It was the most decorated squadron in Navy helicopter history. In fact, it was the most decorated squadron in Vietnam. So we got shot at a lot. And I was commanding officer of detachment number 9, Det 9 so-called.
You protected Navy SEALs, Mobile Strike Forces, right?
That's correct.
U.S. Navy PBRs.
Yep.
Chinese airboat pilots.
Yeah, and we protected them from the air, of course. I'll tell you the very first story, and it's the name of the book, Seawolf, Where You From? And we were stationed different places. One was Vung Tau, which is a place where everybody went for R&R, including the Viet Cong. The flight took off, and myself and my wingman, we always flew two together. And when we took off, we had 8,000 rounds in each helicopter and two 7-shot pods on each helicopter. So we're flying down the river at 11 o'clock in the morning. And my door gunner behind me, and he's the one that has seen me when he grew up. He used to have aliens come out of outer space. He didn't know where. So Mike said, Mr. Toohey, there's somebody walking across that dry rice paddy. I said, oh, yeah. So I called him. He said, you're clear to shoot. We have no friendlies out there. Okay, thanks, Control. There are 3 control stations along the border with Thailand and Cambodia. I would go across. I'd sneak over with my wingman, always with a wingman, and we'd fly totally dark. And then when we got to about 10 miles inside Cambodia, you could see the trucks coming down on the road with the lights on. And then we'd put an attack on them. First thing they knew would be I turned my rotating beacon on in the back. My wingman would stay totally dark, so so we're going down the Mekong. They said, well, go ahead. They said, you can go ahead and shoot. I said, okay, thanks, Control. So I dropped down successfully. I left my wingman at 1,000. I dropped down in a big circle. And my doors, I had 2 doors, one each side, and they had M60, 30 cal. And they had a big container. Each guy had 2,000 rounds in a big metal container. So as I went this big circle, I always made right-hand turns because I could look out that window. It's stood in the picturing. This guy's just walking across. there's somebody out in the field, but he was younger. He looked about I was about 35 at the time. And so as I eased down, I flew right over him. I said, no, he's not armed. We're not going to shoot him. No, I said, we'll take him out right now. And he wouldn't duck. He was walking straight ahead. He had a set on him like you wouldn't believe. Cojones. I said, we're going to head back up. It didn't take long. And I had seen these guys before, but there was a bunch of them. About 6 months before that, in April, I was in that portion of South Vietnam. We were running along at about 10, 20 feet off the ground, right on top of the trees. And the reason we did that, because they could not hear us coming. So we surprised probably 50 of them. They were spec ops from the 1st NVA Division. And I fill this in later. So then fast forward, it's the same guys, except they're in a different location. They're probably 15, 20 miles further down the river. So as I climbed back up, I said, he goes free. And about that time, he called me. He didn't have anything on him. He didn't have a hat. Just had pajamas, flip-flops, that's it. And his hands were swinging at his side. No Boses, no communications, nothing. He didn't have much on, like a peasant. Except I knew instinctively he was not a peasant. He was one of them spec ops, probably the same group that I had seen 6 months before. So he called me and he said, Seawolf, where are you from? Question. And then I never answered him. I'm not sure why. I just didn't. Got out, flew back to the base. And I sat there and had a cup of coffee. I often wanted to see him. I was going to go back and never. And I had no idea what his name was. If I could get a hold of that guy, he was probably live outside of Hanoi. In North, he probably would be in what they call North Vietnam now.
I'll tell you what, Bob, you are one lucky soldier. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Chris Drake is a healthcare worker in Michigan determined to give back through his book, The Revelation, 30 Rules to Effectiveness. Okay, so you've got FACHE after your name, which means?
Good question. FACHE means that I'm board certified in healthcare management through the American College of Healthcare Executives. This book is a practical guide that offers tips and advice to both job seekers and employed individuals on how to be successful in their professional endeavors. Through reading the book, one can better understand how to establish connections and get in front of the right people to land an interview or perhaps a job offer. The book can assist an individual with negotiating a desirable salary, or if you're an employed individual, the book can put you in a position to be successful in terms of how you present yourself within and outside of your organization, or if you're looking for something as simple as how to run a meeting. The most common mistake we often encounter is thinking we can do it alone, undervaluing the power of networking. There are many ways to network these days. Conferences, I'm speaking in terms of pre-COVID now, but conferences, local and regional and national, through friends. Your friend may know a friend who knows a friend who works in an industry that you're interested in entering. Social media, that's a way by which you can connect with the people that you're interested in connecting with. There are so many outlets these days for individuals to plug in to and broaden their reach as it relates to building relationships and networking. One simply has to apply himself or herself.
Does this work across the board?
It does. It's not industry specific. That's a great question. I wrote this book with everyone in mind. I wanted someone who's in high school to be able to pick up this book and find value with it. in terms of what they could do next after they graduate from high school. I wanted someone who may have attended college and wanted to understand how they could proceed after graduating from college or preparing for post-college activity. This book allows them to better understand what that could look like. Or an individual who's in sector A through Z could easily tap into this resource and find tips that he or she may deem beneficial as to how they can get a leg up in their situation and ultimately move ahead accordingly. This book, while it's a very concise and practical published work, is applicable to people at all levels of their profession, ranging from early careers to the most seasoned veterans who are looking to do something different or do something more. One thing that COVID has taught us or forced us to do is reinvent how we do things, right? It forced us to engage in unconventional activities in order to be effective. So where there's a will, there's a way.
Got that right, Chris. Thank you so much. Reinvention is the name of the game, right? Authors are reinventing how to promote their books. We're all reinventing how we work, where we work, from home, in the office. Reinvention is definitely key if we want to survive this crazy pandemic. And necessity is the mother of invention and reinvention, right? But nobody's going to tell you it's easy. We do what we can here on the Page Publishing Book Club to give you ideas on how to write and promote and give you encouragement every way we can. Go to 710WOR.com if you missed anything or if you want to share the podcast. Hope Halloween wasn't too scary, and whatever you do this week, if you haven't already, vote. Please vote. Oh, and it's daylight saving time. So what time is it? I don't even know. Listen, just fall back. That's all I do know. All right, I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. I'll catch you next time.